Today I'll be talking about Jack the Ripper and his 5 victims, what they did and where they were before they were murdered. I will also give my full conclusion on who I think the identity of Jack the Ripper is. That was before the murder took place, around 10 PM. Mary was seen walking the Whitechapel Road. Around 12:30 AM, she was seen leaving the pub in Brick Lane, Spitzfield. Mary was thrown out of 18 Froll Street because she didn't have enough money for a bed for the night. She then went back to work on the streets to get her money for the bed. She was last seen alive standing at the corner of Osborne Street and Whitechapel Road around 2:30 AM, which was an hour before her death. One of her roommates claims that she had enough money for 3 beds for the night, but kept spending her earnings on alcohol. About 3:40 AM, a cart driver named Charles Allen Lacomere was the person who discovered Mary Ann Nicholas' body lying on the ground in front of the gated stable entrance in Bucks Row. Around 1:45 AM, Annie found herself without any money, so she could not afford the lodging she was staying at, and went out on the streets to earn some money. An eyewitness saw Miss Chapman talking to a man around 5:30 AM in 29 Hanbury Street, Spitzfield, at the back of a yard. Anne's body was found around 6 AM by a resident of 29 Market Porter John Davis. Elizabeth was seen with a client around 11 PM near Barner Street, and then was seen with a different client around 11:45 PM. At 12:35 AM, a policeman, P.C. Willem, saw Miss Stride was seen with another possible client at 40 Barner Street. The guy she was with at that time had carrying a package. Stride's body was then found at 1 AM by Louise Dyswich. Around 8:30 PM, Edwards was found lying drunk on our Aldgate High Street by P.C. Robinson. She was taken into custody and then detained at Bishopsgate police station until she was sober enough. She left around 1 AM. She was last seen alive around 3:30 AM by 3 witnesses. They just left the club on Duck Street. She was seen standing and talking to a man by the entrance of Church Passage. Edwards was killed between 1:35 AM and 1:45 AM. Her body was mutilated in the southwest corner of Mitry Square. Kelly was 6 weeks behind rent like all the other victims of Jack the Ripper. After 10:45 AM, someone found Mary Jane Kelly's body by looking through the window as they were collecting rent from the room. Stride was laying there, dead on her bed. The 5 victims were murdered by an unknown Ripper who was famously called Jack the Ripper. The Jews are the men that will not be blamed for nothing. The message was done in chalk. Sir Charles Warren from the Metropolitan Police had a fear that this message will have a backlash of the people in the neighborhood, making a riot against the Jewish refugees. Sir Charles ordered the writing to be washed off immediately, which was in time before reporters took pictures of the crime scene. Many people are fascinated about this vicious crime because they know the Ripper got away with the murder and never was caught. Crimes known as the Jack the Ripper murders occurred in 1888, the years after Queen Victoria had celebrated her Golden Jubilee. In 1888, the established workforce perceived another threat to its livelihood in the form of a huge influx of Jewish immigrants who were fleeing persecution and economic hardships in Russia, Poland, and Germany. This is important information because the most famous suspects was Aaron Kosminski, who was a Polish barber. There was over 31 suspects in the Whitechapel murder case. The main suspects that were well known in the public are Aaron Kosminski, Aaron Cohen, Montiague, John Dritt, Michael Ostrog, and Prince Albert, the Royal Ripper, and the Freemasons. The 2 main suspects that stand out were Aaron Kosminski and Aaron Cohen, real name possibly Nathan Kamsky. They were both a patient at an asylum and was told Aaron Cohen was very violent. With this information, it can be possible that the police got the wrong suspect
Aaron Kosminski, as he has never been violent to anyone or been arrested, but Aaron Cohen has and was around at the same time as the 5 known victims were murdered. The only thing that puts Aaron Kosminski in the frame is that our scientists today proved that Aaron Kosminski was with one of the suspects, as the recovered evidence, which we did a DNA test with, proved that he was with one of them. But could this be a coincidence? They could have brushed against each other walking past each other in the streets, or hours before the murders. He could have been a client with one of those victims. There are many hoax letters from the police claiming to be Jack the Ripper, but was later proved it was not from the serial killer. More came after the boss letter when the police made a huge mistake by publishing it to the media. The last letter the police got, there have been many debates if this letter was from him or not, because the letter said he was going to kill again and said he was going to clip the lady's ear off, which later happened to be the victim of Mary Kelly after the letter was received by the police. But people say that it was not Jack the Ripper who wrote this letter, because there was lots of letters claimed to be Jack and ended up being a hoax. Also, it could just be a coincidence, and putting it in the newspaper could have gave the Ripper the idea of clipping Mary's ears off.
Dear boss, I keep on hearing the police have caught me, but they won't fix me just yet. I have laughed when they look so clever and talk about being on the right track. The joke about the leather apron gave me real fits. I am down on whores and I shan't quit ripping them until I do get bucked. Grand work the last job was. I gave the lady squill. How can they catch me now? I love my work and I want to start again. You'll soon hear of me with my funny little games. I saved some proper red stuff in a ginger beer bottle of the last job to write with, but it went thick like glue, and I can't use it. Red ink is fit enough, I hope. The next job I do, I shall clip the lady's ear off and send it to the police officers just for jolly, wouldn't you? Keep this letter back till I do a bit more work, then give it out straight. My knife's so nice and sharp, I want to get to work right away, if I get a chance. Good luck. Yours truly, Jack the Ripper. Don't mind me giving the trade name. P.S. Wasn't good enough to post this before. I got all the red ink off my hands. Curse it, no luck yet. They say I'm a doctor now. Today I'll be taking you on the Jack the Ripper tour. This tour is different to the museum because it starts at 6 or 7 at night and closes at 8 at night. So what we will be doing today is a night walk. This will give you the feel of what it was like for the people in Whitechapel in 1888, and also the fear that the victims had when they were murdered.
All the victims of the Whitechapel murders lived in doss houses every night because of their situation. 4 out of the 5 we talk about on tour lived in this area, a neighbourhood they would have known pretty well. And the reason they were here was due to their destitution. They were all basically living on the streets. Despite having regular working class lives up to a point, these women lost the battle with alcohol. They were all considered to be alcoholics. We don't know why they became alcoholics, to be honest with you. And it was that heavy drinking problem, and usually various other things on the side, that caused any family units that they were with to fall apart, basically. Some of them had children and goodness knows what else. And Mary Ann Nichols is a fine example of that. She'd been married for many years to her husband William, living in South London. 5 children came from that marriage, but it was her heavy drinking and the problems that it developed, that caused that marriage to be under great strain all the time. Now, after living on the streets for about 7 years, she ended up here in 1888, living in the doss houses of Flower and Dean Street and then later Thrall Street. She was 42 at this point. The hair, though, was already going grey. There were a number of teeth missing in her jaw. She was still a heavy drinker, and from what we know, out of those 7 years that she was out and about, 5 of them were spent surviving as a prostitute. It was the only way. Now, these DOS houses did have rules. The Metropolitan Police monitored them regularly, and the owners of those DOS houses, greedy beggars that they were, tended to ignore most of those rules if they could get away with it, except one: no pay, no stay. So if you didn't have the money for the bed, they wouldn't let you keep there. Mary Ann Nichols fell foul of that rule at about 1:30 a.m. on the 31st of August 1888, after apparently drinking away any money that she had for that bed. 4p was all it was needed. She'd been in a pub on Brick Lane, apparently, a witness has claimed. Any case, she had to go, but she was confident the money would soon come. Not only was she drunk, so she was feeling quite confident, but she was wearing a little bonnet, which no one had actually seen before. And optimistically she turned round and said, "Don't worry, keep my bed for me. I shall soon be back with the money. Look at what a jolly bonnet I've got." That optimism, I'm afraid, was completely misguided. She thought this little bonnet increased her visual appeal. She was seen 1 hour later on the next street along from here, Osborne Street, by a friend, propping herself up against a wall to make sure she didn't keel over. That drunk she was. She obviously walked eastwards after that sighting, and within the next hour she met him.
Throughout this journey, it has taught our team new things about this case that we never knew before. To my conclusion, I think that the Ripper was Aaron Cohen. Real name, possibly Nathan Kaczynski. Because it could be possible that Aaron Kosminski could have been mistaken for Aaron Cohen, because their names are very, very similar, and surnames are the same, but spelled differently. But not just Aaron Cohen had a history of being violent and had a police record, he was also around Whitechapel streets at the same time before he was classed as a mentally insane and put in asylum where Aaron Kosminski was. Aaron Kosminski, though, was not insane and was thought to be put in the asylum because the police really believed he was the Ripper, and it made it easier for them to close the investigation. But the police did one thing wrong. If they thought Aaron Kosminski was the Ripper, it would have been harder to charge him because they threw him in the asylum.